Yo, once again, it's on. Back at you one more again, Real Kens TV in the house like kitchen sinks. Hopefully you like the video. Feel free to comment, definitely share, subscribe to the channel if you're not already subscribed, and hit that post notification. So anytime I bring you this action, this heat, guess what? You'll be one of the first, or amongst the first, if you will, to receive. Now, with no further ado, let's get into this afternoon's video, if you will. Last night I was online and I seen a channel that I wasn't familiar with, so I checked it out, and basically Suge Knight, former CEO of Death Row Records, is starting his own podcast in which he's actually calling in on a weekly basis to discuss certain matters, because there's a lot of things being said about Suge Knight that since being incarcerated, he hasn't had an opportunity to tell his side of the story. Excuse me. Suge Knight was sentenced to, I don't even know how many years he got, maybe 27, 28 years, several years ago, for the incident that happened at the video shoot, or the movie set rather, of Straight Outta Compton. Suge pulled up to address certain people. Altercation took place. Suge Knight was leaving the scene, ran over a guy. Guy ended up dying. They charged Suge Knight with the death, and he ended up having to take a plea deal, and I think he took like 28 years in the state of California. So Suge Knight, ever since then, has been incarcerated, and there's been so many people talking about Death Row Records, and they own Death Row Records, and they gave Suge Knight this, they gave him that, he did this, he did that. And I'm not saying any of it's not true or it is true, I don't know. I'm just simply saying that I found it intriguing, to say the least, that he's going to be calling in and giving his point of view. Now, last night when I listened to this, it was the first episode 1. So what I'm thinking is that it sounded as though he didn't really go into specifics. He just touched on certain issues, and then he went to something else. So as the weeks go by, I'm guessing that he's going to be addressing these issues. He talked about how Master P, was saying that he met with him at the prison when the whole situation was Snoop Dogg leaving Death Row and going to No Limit Records. He talked about how Master P never came up to the prison and spoke with him directly. Everything went through Brian Turner, who was an exec at Priority Records at the time. Well, Master P has told stories about how him and Suge Knight sit down as businessmen and came up with a figure in which it was fair for everybody so that Snoop could come over to Death Row. I've heard Master P tell that story several times. I'm not saying P's lying. I fool with P. Pause. Master P fan. You know what I mean? But Suge Knight said that never ever happened. He said, I've never talked to P at a prison. Reggie White, I believe is his name, Reggie White, he was an exec at Death Row Records. He said the same thing. He was like, man, I control the visitation list. I know who came in and who didn't come in. P never came to prison to talk to Suge. Now, at the end of the day, it's neither here nor there, because Snoop did leave Death Row and he did go to No Limit Records and was very, very successful. So I'm not going to sit here and say anything bad about P. I'm not going to sit here and insinuate anything as far as P, not telling the truth. I'm just simply saying that's what Suge Knight, this is a reaction video. So that's what Suge Knight was saying. He touched on Akon. He talked about the situation where he was supposedly knocked out in the club. He said that didn't happen. He addressed Whack 100. Whack 100 stated several times on his show, Clubhouse rather, that Suge Knight, unfortunately his mother had passed away and he was hitting bad. He was hitting real bad, so he called Whack 100 up. Whack 100 said that he paid for the funeral, the food, I guess I don't want to call it a reception, but whatever you have after the funeral, where everybody meets and eats and things of that nature. Whack 100 said he paid for all of that. Stand-up guy to do something like that, Very stand-up. Suge Knight, he didn't deny it, but he basically said that whoever wanted to do something, I allowed them to do something. I'm not going to turn down money. So essentially he was saying, yeah, Whack did that, but he offered it. So if you're offering to do something like that for me, why would I turn that down? He addressed the individual saying that they're the real owners of Death Row. They started Death Row Records. He addressed that. He didn't address it. He just touched upon it. So, as I mentioned, I'm assuming that he's going to address. Seems like last night, the first episode, was just more so of a preview of what's to come. He talked about Snoop, touched on Dr. Dre a little bit. And he said some very interesting things as far as the overall industry. Before I get to what he talked about as far as the industry, he talked about Tupac. People saying that he had Pac killed. People saying that he was going to leave Death Row. He was like, man, Pac loved Death Row. He was like, man, Pac loved Death Row. Pac wasn't trying to leave Death Row. And he was like, and I love Pac. It was just an unfortunate situation, circumstances that happened that particular night in Vegas. But, man, I love Pac. He talked about all the guys that were saying, they love Tupac, Tupac this, Tupac that. But which one of y'all went and got him out of prison when he was down and out and he didn't have nobody to bail him out? Which one of y'all put up $1 million plus to get him out? He was like, so, you can say what you want to say, but I did what I did and we had that relationship and you all going to learn more about it. But me and Pac was tight. He talked about that. He talked about the industry as far as, and he gave Birdman his flowers. He said, Birdman, man, they're doing an excellent job. Cash Money Records, man, they, took it and ran with it. Definitely gave, Bird his props. And he addressed the whole master situation, owning your masters. He was like, I was the first person that owned my masters in the industry. People didn't even know what masters were before me. Because these artists was getting these messed up deals to where if they was getting 10 or 15%, they thought they was really doing something. He said, I came in, changed the game. I was the one that showed people, these other labels that came along after me, and he didn't do no hating or nothing like that. I showed them how to do these record deals. I own my masters at Death Row. So it's gonna be very interesting. I'd love to hear his take as far as how he feels about Snoop owning Death Row Records now. He mentioned Snoop, but he didn't really go into, he was just kind of like, man, Snoop knows what it is. And he just left it at that. Snoop knows what it is. Now, from my understanding, they cool at this point. So I don't think they have any beef or I think they kind of talked and buried the hatchet. And Snoop has said, I had to bury the hatchet with Suge Knight for the simple fact that there would be no Snoop if it wasn't for Suge Knight. He got me, he gave me an opportunity that I'll forever be grateful for. So I'll never have nothing bad to say about Suge Knight. Yeah, it was what it was back then, but now, I'm grown now. We all sit down, chopped it up, had a conversation, hashed everything out. I told him how I felt. He told me how he felt, and, it just kind of went from there. See, a person like Suge Knight, people saying that he's broke. Think about Suge. If you have a name, you'll never be broke. If you have a name, you'll never be broke. Suge Knight, even in prison, can generate money because he has a name. Man's doing podcasts from prison. I'm sure at some point, I know it's been some back and forth on his, not a movie deal, but I think it's more so of a buyout, if you will. Telling his story. Who's going to buy it? Who's going to be the real owner? Because from what I understand, there's been a few different people that, wanted to invest and tell his story, but I guess they got to get some things, cleared up. Death Row movie from his point of view. Suge Knight will always make money. Always. Because he has a name. Suge Knight. Former Death Row Records. CEO. Talked about how he came up. Neighborhoods he came up in. How it was, being a youngster in California. It's going to be very, very interesting. I'm looking forward to watching it. So I just wanted to share this with you all. For you all that didn't know, Suge Knight definitely is. I don't know if it's his podcast per se, but he's definitely participating, if you will, in a podcast in which he's going to call every week and talk about different events, different stories that transpired, took place at Death Row Records. So y'all stay tuned. I'm gonna definitely, and every time he drops a new video, a new phone call, however you want to put it, I'm gonna chime in with my reaction video, because I'm looking forward to hearing it straight from the horse's mouth. I hear everybody else saying stuff, and I'm not saying that they're wrong, but I'm looking forward to hearing it exactly from the horse's mouth, his point of view. Real Kens TV. Hopefully you liked the video. Feel free to comment. Definitely share. Subscribe to the channel if you're not already subscribed. And hit that post notification. So anytime I bring you this action and this heat, guess what? You're one of the first to receive it. Real Kens TV, man.